Welcome to Science, Health and Healing Library of Children's Health Core. I'm Dr. Majid Ali. The subject of this article is insulin rate of release. This is a crucial point that I am trying to emphasize in this series on pediatric diabetes type 2, pediatric pre-diabetes. The center point that I'm trying to explain in so many ways, to me it is crucial. Insulin is a hormone produced in the gland pancreas lying behind the stomach, and insulin hormone lowers the blood sugar level when it rises after we eat. Insulin is both a minister of metabolism and energy to the oxygen king of human biology. Insulin is fattening and inflaming in excess. It damages all cell populations. I ask for understanding from people who have watched a large number of segments on this subject, because there are some redundancies and they are planned on my part. I don't want anyone who visits these YouTube encyclopedias, one of Children's Health Core and the other is of Science, Health and Healing Library of Ali Academy, because you really cannot understand the origin of obesity, excess weight in children, obesity in any age, but I'm focusing on the issues of pediatric prediabetes and pediatric diabetes type 1, and I predicted an epidemic. When you release insulin slowly in response to certain foods, for example, proteins and fats, insulin doesn't build up to a level that it's going to sharply drop the blood sugar, create low blood sugar hypoglycemia, which will make you uncomfortable in many ways, sometimes uneasiness, sometimes fatigue, sometimes rapid heart rate, heart palpitations, mood swings. And then people look for comfort foods. And so I have a series of articles addressing this problem specifically. Which is better, bread alone or bread with butter? What is better, toast alone or toast with eggs? What is better if you have to have a dessert, cheesecake or apple pie? What is better, melon with cheese or melon without cheese? Over and over, I'm trying to illustrate this point, because you cannot understand excess insulin, hyperinsulinemia, and you cannot understand insulin resistance, which means insulin is not working, without understanding the differences in the rates of release of insulin in response to how we eat. When we dump foods into our body, we are going to further increase the rate of insulin release. The insulin peak will go way up. It will drive down the blood sugar. Of course, when it is way up, it's going to add more grease to cell membranes. And then the insulin receptor protein is going to become more dysfunctional. There is almost no understanding, to my knowledge, among pediatricians or endocrinologists or diabetes specialists of this critical distinction. Regrettably, many of them still believe calories in, calories out. They think that the children are obese, overweight, or they're developing diabetes because they're eating too much. Or they will say, well, they're not doing exercise. There are separate programs where I try to make a distinction between toxic muscles and healthy muscles, toxic fat cells and healthy fat cells, brown fat cells and yellow fat cells. There are articles where I include references to irisin, I-R-I-S-I-N. That is a molecular messenger going from active muscle cells to the fat cells. so they can increase the metabolism of fat in the fat cells. The fat can be melted. We can make cell membranes, we can decrease cell membranes, make insulin work efficiently, and avoid all the toxicities of excess insulin. Please watch the segment 7 Stages of Insulin Toxicity. I especially recommend that program. I also hope that you will look at other segments which I just mentioned: toast alone or toast with eggs, bread alone or bread with butter. And then it will tell you, for example, it's a huge mistake to say, oh, I'm not going to have a meal, I'll just have a dessert. That is going to dramatically increase the rate of insulin release and all the serious negative effects when insulin is released at a high rate. You want to keep the insulin release in a slow, harmonic, sustained way. You don't want insulin roller coasters because they will trigger adrenaline roller coasters. They will also trigger neurotransmitter roller coasters. They will disrupt your neurotransmission in the brain, and that's one way you get sugar blues. Now I'm going to briefly give you the data for a 13-year-old boy who was a star student. I've also presented this case in another context, but I want to repeat that. A star student whose health deteriorated very quickly over a period of some months, and his academic work suffered seriously. He became very tired. He had hurt his blood sugars and insulin. Insulin, fasting 9.4, ideally it should be less than 2. At 1 hour, insulin 22.5, ideally it should be less than 20. At 2 hours, it's 23.6. For a 13-year-old, 20.36 at 2 hours is too much insulin. And then at 3 hours, amazingly, he still has 19.4 units, which is grossly abnormal. Now, if a doctor made a mistake of looking at the laboratory reference ranges, he'll miss the whole point. That, unfortunately, is the tragedy. That's why I keep coming back to the crucial subjects of the rate of insulin release. Let's look at the blood glucose. I'm going to suggest that you watch this program a second time. I'm going to suggest that you can write down these numbers, and I'm going to also post this data on kids123.org, the official website of Children's Health Code. So the blood sugar values were 83 at 1 hour, 54, at 2 hours, 59, at 3 hours, 69. The most amazing thing is that after glucose load, you expect the blood glucose to rise, and in this case, from 83, it fell down to 54. He developed hypoglycemia within 1 hour, and then 59 at 2 hours, and then 69 at 3 hours. He never showed you his normal physiological healthy response to a glucose load. If somebody were going to make a mistake of looking at the insulin and say, what is Dr. Ali fussing about? This child has a perfectly normal insulin profile. Why? Because the laboratory says it is normal. And then I would ask them this question. Dr. Robert Atkins of Atkins Diet was a very good friend of mine, a very dear friend. He was also my patient in the last 2 years of his life. When I started Science, Health and Healing radio program on WEVD New York many years ago, he honored me. He wanted to support me and encourage me, so he came on as a guest. He was, of course, a celebrity at that time. So we were talking about insulin, and at that time, I wasn't aware of the crucial importance of the rate of insulin release. I was only talking about too much insulin, which, of course, he knew. So I said, Bob, I sometimes see these patients with the insulin glucose. The glucose never rises. It's a flat. What do you make out of it? And he smiled and he said, you know, I have seen that too. You're a pathologist. Maybe you can explain. Because I never understood that. And at that time, I thought it was happening because the stomach was sluggish and there's no blood supply to the stomach. And so the glucose is not absorbed. But I missed the point for years myself until I realized that if you sharply focus on the insulin levels, then you realize, in this case, it is too rapid a rate of insulin release, which doesn't allow the blood sugar to go up after a sugar load. It is so revealing. Please read the article, Rate of Insulin Release, and pediatric diabetes, again on kids123.org. It's such a crucial subject. We need to understand this. Our vision at this encyclopedia, Children's Health Code, is to provide authentic information untainted by fear profiteers that control the news media, the television. For people all over the world, information which is simple to understand, easy to reach, and suitable for people of all backgrounds. I ask for your support. Forward this YouTube segment to your email, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or other social contacts. Should you wish to do more, please send me an email, aliacademy7@gmail.com. Tell us how you would like to participate in our effort at Children's Health Code. This is a foundation that my wife and I founded some years ago. We invite your creative ideas. We invite your concerns, and you share it with us. And then we leave it to your creativity, how you can find ways of supporting us, how can you help us take this message all over the world. In a companion video, I predicted an epidemic of pediatric diabetes type 2 in the United States within 10 years. It's my sad prediction that within 25 years, all regions of the world will have an epidemic of pediatric type 2. It's a problem of toxicities of foods, environments, and thoughts. Just think about that. India, next to the United States, has the highest rate of diabetes type 2 in the world. And masses of India are really very poorly nourished, and many of them are starving. Why are they becoming diabetic? If obesity is the only reason, if calorie in, calorie out nonsense is really valid, then you cannot explain why would there be an epidemic. But if you understand the toxicities of foods, environments, and thought, and how they are building cell membrane grease and make insulin dysfunctional, and then unfortunately, when these children are given some food, it is starch, and the insulin rises sharply. It just sets the stage for the next roller coaster. Thank you for joining me. Do join me again. Until then, may you be gracious, graceful, and generous in your spirit. Thank you so much.